Meghan is deliberately pushing Harry down, that she's kind of competing with her own husband.
Everything she had told Oprah Winfrey, everything that she had told Netflix, everything that Harry wrote in Spare were just big, fat lies.
They're cashing in on their increasingly slim royal connection and selling Harry's family down the river.
Markle from the off seized the opportunity, right? She announced it big before they'd even agreed everything, that she was an executive producer.
Electric is the connection between Harry and Meghan, if you get my drift.
It's not one or two people she has bullied. She has been horrific to people in the royal family since departing the royal family.
Both Harry and Meghan said they would never come back to the UK unless they got an apology. Well, they came back. So, of course, I wanted to know if they got an apology. Apparently, they did not.
She's never done the Meghan Markle, it's Meghan now, it's Meghan Sussex.
It's not funny you say that, it's Meghan Sussex.
I bet she doesn't eat.
But what I knew is that Catherine was horrified, and I didn't use the B word at that point. You know, you've got to be very careful. I was the first to do it. So it was Catherine raising issues about the way Meghan spoke to their shared staff.
She had a plan before she ever met Harry. Every paparazzi stroll, every stage photograph, every perfectly timed tear. The truth about why Meghan really married into the royal family is finally out, and what it reveals about the last 10 years is worse than anyone ever dared to say.
10 years. 10 years of pain. 10 years of lies. 10 years of PR shit shows. But hey, at least Meghan Markle brought all of us together. At least Meghan Markle created this community of royalists as we learned what we had to fight for to get the truth out.
That engagement interview never actually left people. Not really. Years have passed, and it still comes up in conversations because something about watching it settled into the back of people's minds and refused to move. The reason it stayed is simple. What millions of people felt while watching it turn out to be completely correct.
Thought after he'd broken up with Cressida and he met an actress that likes going out and partying and having fun. And I thought, you know what? She's his Fergie. That's why Fergie was so suited to Andrew. I mean, obviously we know terrible things about them now, but back then, you know, people really did like them because they were playful and fun together.
She sat next to Harry, looking perfectly composed, perfectly prepared. Every answer arrived smoothly and without the slightest hesitation. She spoke warmly about his family, about how welcome she felt stepping into this new world, how grateful she was for every moment of it.
And I thought Harry was actually better suited to a woman like this, that doesn't take herself too seriously, that does quite happily walk around in jeans and a shirt and a beanie and a baseball cap and isn't obsessed with fame and with money.
And a different topic introduced before the question could fully settle. Thomas Markle, the man who raised her alone, who paid for her education, who drove her to auditions and waited in parking lots while she chased her dream, did not receive a single mention across the entire interview. Not one word.
The first moment that I think I really realized something was very wrong was in those weeks before the wedding, when I became friends with Samantha Markle and was so horrified by Meghan's treatment of her own father. I think for me, I'm such a family guy, you know, my mum.
You were on the
and
inside as well, Dan, as it were. You were on the inside with the Markles, really finding out what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. But the moment that made millions of people genuinely stop and look at each other.
Was something Harry himself said. He looked directly into the camera and told the world that Meghan would do anything he asked. He said it like a man describing the most beautiful thing he had ever experienced, like it was proof of how deeply she loved him.
Is that even before she realized she had him in the ball of her hand, to get him in the ball of her hand, she was prepared to do and did anything and everything. Let's remember Harry said, Meghan will do anything I ask.
Women watching at home heard something entirely different. A person who will do absolutely anything you ask is not in love with you. They are in a role. They are performing, and most people who live long enough know the fundamental difference between someone who loves you and someone who needs something from you. That feeling arrived immediately for millions of viewers.
That Markle was using, without permission, the ill-advised HRH because she was the one that received the gift. And then Markle again, oh, I'm just doing this privately. So you can understand, she, I know, got quite a bit of backlash for that.
Then came the paparazzi strolls. While Harry was publicly pleading for his girlfriend to be left alone, Meghan was appearing in photographs every single day, relaxed, effortlessly casual, never looking like someone being chased. The photographs had the quality of a deliberate portfolio, someone who was choosing very carefully when to be seen, and how to be seen, and exactly what story those images should tell about her.
More apparent when I noticed the paparazzi strolls. So it was just before the engagement announcement, and I noticed that Meghan was appearing quite a lot. Prince Harry's girlfriend. And there were lots of stories coming out saying that she was being hounded and chased, but you never actually saw videos of her being hounded and chased.
Then came the Vanity Fair cover. Harry was demanding privacy for his girlfriend, while his girlfriend was posing for one of the most recognizable magazines in the world. Styled and lit and positioned like someone who already knew exactly where this was all heading. Like someone who had thought very carefully about the destination long before the journey was ever made public. Millions of people felt something was genuinely wrong that day. They said so out loud, and were told they were seeing things that were not there, called jealous, called bitter, called racist. But every single thing they felt turned out to be exactly right.
And then, of course, with the big statement that came out where Harry's like, leave my girlfriend alone, everybody's being racist, everybody's being mean. I was like, oh dear, she really is an actress. And then from that point, I think once you start to have the wool pulled from your eyes, you started to see these stories coming out about how Meghan was complaining about Catherine not giving her a lift into town, and Meghan was shopping and photographed outside the front of the palace when she could have used the private back entrance. It was becoming very, very obvious that she was going to cause a problem.
And what was already happening behind palace walls at that precise moment was something that would take years to fully come into the open. The pacing of everything Meghan did in those early months was not accidental. Every public appearance was timed. Every statement was measured. Every moment of apparent spontaneity had been considered in advance. You do not get that precise at managing your own image without having spent a very long time thinking carefully about exactly what image you are trying to manage and why.
Why?
You also have to look at this decade and think, well, actually, it has galvanized a lot of us to realize what we're up against, to realize the PR machine that surrounded someone like Meghan Markle. And if people like you, Tash, hadn't actually decided to go independent, start calling out her, and I'm sorry to use the term, but her bullshit, because it is.
There is one image from that wedding that stayed with people in a way the dress and the carriage, and the flowers never quite did. It was the Queen's face inside that chapel. And what that expression contained was not happiness for her grandson. It was something considerably heavier than happiness.
This is, I think, what always informed my reporting right from the start, was that it was the Queen who was unhappy. And it just made everything so different right from the start, because they couldn't just blame courtiers or men in grey suits, Tash. It was the Queen.
Before that wedding happened, the Queen personally picked up the telephone and called Harry, not through a private secretary, not through palace staff relaying a concern through the appropriate channels. She called him directly herself, and she told him that what she was witnessing could not continue, that whatever was happening needed to stop before those vows were exchanged. The Queen did not personally involve herself in household disputes or staff complaints. She had spent 70 years building structures specifically designed to prevent that kind of thing from ever reaching her directly. The fact that she bypassed every one of those structures and made that call herself tells you everything you need to know about how serious what she was witnessing had actually become.
It was the Queen. She picked up the phone directly to Prince Harry and said, Meghan cannot behave like this. And I was so happy that actually I was able to confirm the Queen's involvement, because it really did mean Harry and Meghan. I mean, they still tried, of course, but it made it much harder for them to deny the depths of concern.
I mean, the way that they treated everybody from the moment that she joined. It was clearly obvious that Meghan was not treating anybody around her nicely, the staff, but for the Queen to have to get involved so many times to tell Meghan, you don't talk to the staff like that. You don't treat our chefs like that. You don't treat the gardeners like that. This is not how we treat people, Meghan. You know, that you can't just have what you want. This is the tiara you're going to have.
Behind those palace walls, things were happening that people with decades of royal household experience had simply never encountered before. Staff members who had given years of loyal service finding themselves unable to explain to their own families what their working days had become. People who had never once raised a professional complaint in their entire careers walking out the door. A pattern of behavior so consistent and so specific that ignoring it was no longer possible for anyone responsible for running those households.
I just cannot imagine someone, Meghan at the time was also trying to, it's a bit like her, one minute she's marching down the carpet, sashaying like she's a superstar, and the next minute she's doing the coy hand over mouth, like, I'm so shy, I'm a little wallflower act. This was very similar. She was trying to tell the world that she's really down to earth. Yet behind the scenes, she was a diva, like had never entered in the royal family before. She was demanding, she was rude, she was horrible to everybody because Meghan obviously feels like it makes her feel powerful, and she was encouraging that sort of behavior.
Every time a concern was raised, the story flipped. The complaint became evidence of how unfairly Meghan was being treated. The person raising the issue became the problem. The reversal happened with such consistency that looking back at it now, it reads less like emotional sensitivity and considerably more like a practice and prepared response to a situation that had occurred before. He understood immediately what he was looking at. He was not wrong about a single aspect of it.
Can speak to people like they are a piece of dog muck on your shoe. Yes, you can do this. I mean, there are so many different reports that came out. The Queen spoke to her. William spoke to her. Do not continue to treat people like this. And Meghan is incapable of treating people nicely because she sees everybody as either someone that is going to be of use to her, and whilst they are of use, she'll love bomb them to death. And that's why celebrities and famous people say she's the nicest, sweetest person that you could ever meet in your entire life. But anybody else that's worked with her, worked for her, or even perhaps someone that was once a former friend has said, oh, when she turns on you, she really turns. She really is the master of deception, that one.
What is most painful about this part of the story is not simply that warnings were given and ignored. Philip read the situation at the very first meeting. He had spent his entire adult life in rooms full of powerful and ambitious people, wearing various kinds of warmth as a tool. It is that the Queen spent her final years watching the institution she had dedicated her entire life to protecting being systematically dismantled, not by an outsider, by her own grandson and the woman she had opened her family to welcome. And she died while it was still happening, still raw, still unresolved, still causing damage she could see but could not stop.
It is horrific when you go back and you think how many complaints there have been. How many? I mean, there is, it's not one or two people she has bullied. She has been horrific to people in the royal family since departing the royal family. We even know from Archwell staff, those that were brave enough to speak to, I think it was it Vanity Fair? They got it,
Yes.
or the Hollywood Reporter, or both actually.
Both.
I think
About
both publications.
American staff,
Yeah.
which is what's so interesting.
The behavior has continued. So it goes to show, it validates all of those stories that came out, the stories that you broke as well, that she was being nasty to palace staff.
Harry chose Meghan over the woman who had loved him unconditionally his entire life. And what came next would make that choice look even more deliberate than it already appeared. Here is something that becomes genuinely disturbing the more carefully you think about it. Harry and Meghan announced their engagement to the world, did the interview, the photo shoot, the official statements. And at that point, Harry had never once met the man who raised his future wife. Not once. Not a real conversation. Not even a telephone call that Thomas could point to as the moment her future husband reached out to introduce himself. Nothing existed between them at all. No suit was fitted for him. No flights were booked. No hotel was organized.
And this is all chronological. And I kicked off, Tash, and this is what did it for me. The subhuman treatment of Thomas Markle. That was what started it for me. The fact that Harry hadn't even met the guy. He hadn't even spoken to him properly.
Doria had been handled with extraordinary care, welcomed properly, introduced to the right people, given every consideration a future mother of a senior royal's bride would reasonably expect. Thomas Markle knew who Meghan was before the story was constructed, before the carefully packaged narrative about a girl who came from very little and built herself through determination and grace. He knew the original version. Thomas was treated as though he simply did not exist, and that was not poor planning by a couple under pressure managing a complicated wedding. That was a deliberate decision made for a specific reason, the version that predated everything that had been carefully layered on top of it. And the original version could not be anywhere near Harry before that ring was on that finger and that ceremony was finished.
That was a massive red flag, wasn't it, when he went in for a radio interview as well, and he turned around and said that they were going to be the family that she never had. So it was very apparent that Meghan was telling lies, that she was like an orphan Annie, that she grew up in absolute poverty, that she had nothing. Obviously, this is Meghan trying to get Harry to be her hero and to save her. And I think that resonated with a lot of people, where he just adored her entire life. And for Harry to not even have had the basic respect, the basic decency to meet him. And it was becoming all the more obvious that something shady was going on as well, because he was meant to be walking her down the aisle, but Harry had never met him. They'd never flown him over to the UK like they did Doria. He hadn't even had a suit fitted.
The wedding guest list follows exactly the same logic. Once you understand what is actually driving it, Suits co-stars appeared during the ceremony. They were in the photographs. It created an impression that Meghan had genuine friendships and a real history outside the royal world she was entering. Those same people were not present at the evening reception because evening receptions are informal. People relax and conversations go to places they were never intended to go, and someone might accidentally say something Harry was not supposed to hear before it was too late for it to matter.
Very same reason why she didn't want any friends, any family, even her Suits co-stars. When it came to the evening reception of the wedding, they were allowed to come during the day for the photos. So it made, the public see, oh, Meghan does have people. Oh, look, there's some of her Suits co-stars. But they were not invited to the evening because Meghan had told so many lies, in my opinion, she couldn't risk them going around having a few drinks and sinking some of those ships. But yeah, it 100%. Was awful.
Her first husband's family will not speak her name, not out of discretion or politeness. Something considerably more significant sits behind that particular silence. Someone who genuinely loves you wants you to have a full life. They want you surrounded by people who care about you independently of them. They celebrate your friendships. They encourage the relationships that mean something to you. They do not quietly and methodically dismantle every meaningful connection you have until the only person remaining in your world is them.
She's managed to sort of deflect attention away from that one, and Harry has been made to understand he has to hold her hand when she orders it, and he has to pretend to smile when she orders it. But there are going to be very few photo ops in future because things are so harmonious between the two of them that she dare not post them onto the internet, because if she did, well, Pornhub would come crashing down. So electric is the connection between Harry and Meghan.
What happened to Harry is not a story that exists only inside palace walls and streaming documentaries. It is a human story, one that a significant number of people watching this have lived through some version of themselves. The comments under every video covering this subject carry the exact same thread running through them. People recognizing a pattern they personally experienced and finally seeing it named out loud by someone else. First comes the intensity that feels unlike anything you have experienced before. A person who seems to understand you at a depth nobody else has ever reached, who listens differently, who validates every frustration and reflects back every feeling with such accuracy that it seems almost impossible this person only just arrived in your life.
The royals were shocked and horrified that they were having to intervene. This is a woman, as I said, in one breath is trying to act like that she's down to earth. She's a nice, normal girl. This is or as the mainstream media were reporting, this is the breath of fresh air that the royal family need. She wasn't a breath of fresh air. She was a tornado from hell. She was trying to tear everything and anybody that she felt got into her path to pieces. Meghan was not a breath of fresh air in any way, shape, or form. But I will give her some credit, because I have said this, that I feel she did the royal family a favour because she took out the weakest link.
Harry was carrying grief over his mother that had been sitting inside him since he was 12 years old, walking behind her coffin while the entire world watched. He felt disconnected from his own purpose. He struggled with his role and his place, and his sense of who he actually was when the titles and the duties and the formal structures were removed. He was not a difficult target. He was very specifically the right one.
And it's interesting with Harry and the hair, because I think this is a symptom, Paula, of how incompatible Harry is with life in California and the glamorous world of Hollywood. Because it's my view that if Harry was living his best life and being himself in England, I think what you'd see is the hair would fall out. There would be no mousse or mascara or trip to Istanbul. The Brits have a different attitude, don't they, to kind of physical appearance, especially on the showbiz side. And you keep it real.
Never sudden or dramatic at first. Always patient and incremental. Small observations placed at precisely the right moments. Small doubts introduced with careful timing. Wasn't that comment from William a little sharp? Did you notice how Catherine looked when you said that? I am only telling you this because I love you and I want you to see what I see. And piece by piece, the people who had known Harry his entire life started feeling further away, and the gap being quietly created started looking from the outside like something Harry himself had freely chosen.
He's evidently a crass opportunist, and she also is very delusional. And I think as she gained power over Harry, she realized, well, if I can't ingratiate myself to these people, I'd better find reasons for why they're in the wrong and I'm in the right.
Then comes a point where returning feels structurally impossible, where enough has been said publicly and enough damage has been done that climbing back requires something most people simply cannot manage from that position. After Oprah, after Netflix, after Spare, each move widened the gap. Each public statement made reconciliation harder to imagine from the other side. Each one felt to Harry like standing up for what he believed. Each one served a completely different purpose for someone else entirely.
So Harry now is like a fish out of water. He's in California and he's trying to kind of be as attractive as George Clooney and Brad Pitt. And it ain't working because it's just not him. This is not Harry.
No. Yeah, it's not working. But also what's not working is, frankly, he reeks of desperation and unhappiness.
Highest like comment across every piece of material reviewed for this video said it better than any formal analysis could. Every bully needs supporters. People will fight for them against anyone who asks the wrong question. Not because those people are bad, but because the bully has made them feel chosen and valued and part of something that matters. And they will turn on anyone who threatens that feeling without hesitation. Harry is not the first person this has happened to, but he may be the most publicly documented example of it that has ever existed.
She certainly didn't where Prince Philip was concerned. He saw her for exactly what she was from the word go. Exactly. I mean, he'd run across her type. And the Meghans of this world are a dime a dozen. I mean, you know, all sorts of wannabe hangers-on.
3 specific moments removed any remaining doubt about what this marriage was actually built around and what it was always intended to accomplish. The Oprah interview was not 2 people in pain reaching out for understanding and support. It was a product planned, produced, timed, approved at every stage, and it aired while Prince Philip lay in hospital at 99 years old, fighting to stay alive. Harry sat in a California garden talking about how his family had failed him while his grandfather was connected to machines in a hospital room. Philip died weeks later. No apology was offered for the timing. Not one word.
We have these three critical post-Megxit moment. That's how I see them. First, the Oprah Winfrey interview as Prince Philip lay dying. 7, the Netflix Harry and Meghan docuseries with those attacks on the royal family, attacks on the institution, and Spare, which I think then continued a full-on kamikaze desire to bring down the British royal family. And all three, Tash, are so significant, but I think in a way can be grouped together, because for me, after those 3 moments, there was no going back.
Then came Netflix, a documentary that attacked the institution methodically and with high production value, because that is precisely what it was designed to do. Then Spotify, then Spare, a book so deliberately specific in what it chose to reveal about William that no person who genuinely loved their brother would have allowed those pages to be published under any circumstances.
Prince William was circumcised. You cannot get much more personal than that. It wasn't just Harry revealing details about himself. He was revealing intimate things about his family. He said that King Charles reeked and stank and recoiled. People recoiled from him. These are very nasty, malicious things. His brother was bald. He said his brother doesn't look anything like Princess Diana.
Then someone said the truth plainly. The only content Harry and Meghan have ever produced that actually worked financially was built on attacking the royal family. Cookie Queens was beaten at the box office by a 70-minute compilation of internet cat videos playing at 191 fewer venues.
Now, Harry and Meghan's newest film project, Cookie Queens, crumbled at the box office over the weekend. The documentary marked the Sussexes' theatrical feature debut as executive producers. But the film opened at the box office at number 15, which was 5 spots behind Cat Video Fest 2026, a 70-minute theatrical compilation of the internet's best cat videos.
The lifestyle brand is quietly collapsing. The podcasts were canceled. Everything constructed independently of the royal connection failed completely and without exception. Everything built on weaponizing that connection made real money. Hollywood is slow to understand what it is actually looking at, but eventually it always catches up. Jamie Kern-Lima sat across from Meghan on a podcast and agreed with everything in front of her, validated every statement, posted 2 glowing public birthday tributes the following year.
That interview that Jamie Kern-Lima did with Meghan Markle earlier this year, where they were supposed, do you remember, they were supposed to be just in sweats, no makeup, please. I mean, I think Jamie didn't have any makeup on, but Meghan Markle, please. It was troweled on, sister. And, you know, the lighting was very flattering. And then, you know, she had to read a letter out from Harry about how brilliant she was because, you know, ultimately. And as you know, I just love Jamie's voice, which I've never really heard since in that level.
And Jamie said nothing publicly at all. Complete silence. And then just days later, she posted a detailed breakdown of exactly how to identify a narcissist in your life. No names were mentioned. No names needed to be. The timing said everything the words deliberately left unsaid.
Ultimately, she's sitting down, trying to raise her profile. There's no two ways about it. Very clever, well, she did by sitting opposite Markle. But now everybody's speculating on this particular thing that James has put out. And it's all about how to spot a narcissist and, you know, what really constitutes a narcissist, what you should look out for. Are these things relative? All that sort of stuff.
Martha Stewart told people directly what she had personally experienced at a dinner they both attended. The Sussex PR machine responded by describing an 85-year-old self-made billionaire as confused. That specific word applied to a woman who built an entire cultural industry from nothing, went to federal prison, came out and rebuilt everything from scratch, and continues operating at a level most people decades younger would struggle to match. The word confused was chosen very deliberately. It landed in a way that was not intended.
In the interview, she said that she actually recently met with Meghan Markle at a dinner party in California. They were both invited to the same event. Meghan was apparently telling everyone about the recent trip that she had to the UK with Prince Harry and Archie and Lilibet. We heard that she actually wasn't supposed to be talking about this visit, that it was very much under lock and key, and that the royal family strictly said, keep this meeting private. So that was the first interesting thing she said.
Gwyneth Paltrow made a kitchen video so transparently aimed at Meghan's lifestyle content that the internet understood immediately exactly what it was. 2 days later, both women appeared together, insisting everything was completely fine, and there was nothing to read into any of it. Gwyneth's expression throughout that video communicated everything the carefully chosen words were constructed to avoid saying out loud. Nobody publicly acknowledged Meghan's 45th birthday. Not Beyoncé, not Serena Williams, not the Clooneys, not the Beckhams. Silence from every direction simultaneously. A woman who had spent years publicly positioning these people as her closest relationships in the world received no public acknowledgement from any of them on a significant milestone birthday.
But what's interesting is even her sort of co-star, Abigail Spencer, seemingly went very quiet. And everybody went quiet on Meghan Markle's recent birthday, her 45th. And you would have thought that might have been a celebration for celebrities to get behind her. You know, the Beyoncés, all the people, the Kardashians. Now, the line goes behind the scenes that the reason why they don't is because Meghan's advised them, don't go into the backlash, don't bother. Everybody can do it privately. Celebrities don't do things privately because they do it for publicity.
And while Hollywood was quietly walking away, Harry was visibly becoming different. The photograph shows something heavy sitting on him now that simply was not there before. At a recent event in New York, when it was made clear that Meghan would not be joining him on the stage, sources say Harry did not push back at all, did not argue, simply accepted it and moved forward. That is either a man finding peace with his current reality, or a man beginning to understand the true shape of the life he is actually living. Invictus is under serious financial scrutiny from multiple directions. Now, veterans of games we're built to honor are publicly asking questions about costs and spending that nobody involved appears willing to answer with any real specificity. The financial comparison between what Invictus spends and what equivalent American veteran programs spend on the same number of participants has entered mainstream conversation in a way that is proving very difficult to quietly manage. You trusted what you saw when you were told you were wrong. That turned out to be the most important thing in this entire story. The videos on screen right now go even further.